Hi, my name is Daphne Argueta, and welcome back to another episode of GME Compass, where we turn the complexities of GME into clarity. Today, we're going to look at accreditation through a different lens. We're going to discuss how strong programs monitor program health, identify meaningful trends, and then also recognize concerns before they even become accreditation risks. Most importantly, what we're going to explore is the hidden work that's behind successful accreditation outcomes and why the readiness should become part of your program's everyday operations. We have no financial disclosures. Content shared by GME Compass is based on our own personal experiences in graduate medical education and reflect our own professional insights. The perspectives shared are our own, and they do not represent the views of any institution or organization that we are or have been affiliated with. Let's talk about what you'll take away from today's episode. We'll talk about the differences between accreditation preparation and accreditation readiness because those are not the same thing. We'll discuss how strong programs monitor their overall health and what data they pay attention to and why trends are often more meaningful than a single survey result or a metric. We're also going to explore how small concerns can gradually become larger accreditation risks if they're not recognized and addressed early. And then finally, we're going to talk about the hidden work that supports the successful accreditation outcomes, the monitoring, the follow through, the continuous improvement, and then the systems that go unnoticed but make all the differences. My goal isn't to just help you prepare for your next site visit, it's to help you think differently about accreditation. So readiness becomes part of your program's everyday operations and not something that you scramble to achieve when a deadline is approaching. When people hear the word accreditation, they often think site visits, surveys, citations, but accreditation is much bigger than just one event. Those certainly play an important part of the accreditation process, don't get me wrong. Not but but they're not accreditation. These are simply checkpoints. Think about it that way. A site visit doesn't create the quality of the program. It reveals it. And the same is true for resident and faculty surveys. They don't create the educational environment. What they do is that they provide a snapshot of how people are experiencing it at a particular moment in time. Strong programs understand that accreditation isn't measured by one single event. It is reflected in the systems and processes and the culture that exists long before anyone from the review committee even arrives. That's why successful programs don't just prepare for accreditation, they build programs that are continuously ready for it. Now that we have established that the accreditation is an ongoing process, let's talk about where that process begins. It begins with understanding your requirements. And when I say understanding the requirements, I don't mean memorizing every single requirement number verbatim. What I mean is understanding what are the requirements asking your program to accomplish and how do they apply to your day-to-day operations. The common program requirements and the specialty specific requirements provide the framework for how programs should function. They establish expectations for areas like supervision and well being, evaluation, committee oversight, continuous improvement. As GME professionals, our job is to translate those expectations into processes that are going to support our programs every day. And much of that work happens behind the scenes. Some of the biggest accreditation successes are the ones that no one ever hears about because those potential issues were identified and addressed before they even became a citation or an area of concern. And that's where accreditation readiness begins. So, what does accreditation look like on a day to day basis? It looks like this. Accreditation readiness isn't built through one major event. It is built through a continuous cycle of assessment, action, and improvement. Every day, programs collect so much information through evaluations and surveys, your committee discussions, your board pass rates, the outcomes from your recruitment, and other performance indicators. That information isn't just collected, it's used. Programs review it, they identify strengths and opportunities for improvement, they develop action plans, and then they implement changes. And then after, they evaluate whether those changes are making any difference. Then the cycle begins again. So it's not about checking a box or completing a requirement once a year. It's about using the information to continuously strengthen the educational experience and improve the program over time. When the cycle When this cycle becomes part of your program's culture, accreditation readiness becomes much easier to maintain, because by the time a site visit is scheduled or a survey opens, the story of your program has already been written. Now let's take it one step further. By now, you've established that accreditation is built through a continuous improvement. But there's another important distinction that every program should understand. Compliance and accreditation health are not the same thing. Compliance is about meeting the requirements. Did the PEC committee meet? Was the CCC documentation completed? Were the required didactic hours protected? Those are things that matter, and every program has to be compliant. Accreditation health asks a different question. Did those activities strengthen the program? A program can complete every required task and still miss opportunities for improvement. And that's why programs should focus on both. They meet the requirements, but they also evaluate outcomes, analyze trends, and use what they've learned to continuously improve the educational experiences. Compliance helps you meet the expectations. Accreditation health helps your program thrive. As healthcare professionals, we're very familiar with the idea of preventative medicine. We encourage our patients to have routine checkups, to monitor their chronic health conditions, to complete recommended screenings, address any concerns before they become serious problems. The goal isn't simply to treat the disease, it's to prevent it whenever possible. Accreditation works the same way. Programs that struggle often find themselves reacting after concern has already been visible. A declining survey score, a citation, a lower board pass rate, or reoccurring issues that were just never fully addressed. High-performing programs monitor their program's health continuously. They review data, they look at patterns, they identify concerns while they're still small enough to address them. Every program will face challenges. The goal isn't to eliminate them, it's to recognize them early enough and then to respond effectively. Because the best accreditation strategy isn't reacting to citations, it's preventing them whenever possible. So now that we've talked about why continuous monitoring matters, the next question becomes, what should we be monitoring? Programs generate, again, an enormous amount of information through all the different sources that we have discussed already, between survey results, evaluations, and all the different outcomes. The good news is that you don't have to monitor everything equally. Instead, you just want to focus on the key indicators that are going to tell you how your program is functioning. I like to think about program health in 5 areas: resident experience, educational outcomes, program operations, faculty engagement, and recruitment and retention. Together, these areas all tell the story of your program, because effective accreditation oversight isn't about collecting more data. It's about knowing which data matters the most and how to use it. As we monitor program health, it is important to remember that a single data point only gives us a snapshot in time. It provides information, but it doesn't always provide context. For example, let's say a survey result comes back at 78%. Is that good? Is that bad? Should we be concerned? The answer is, it depends. Without understanding what came before that number, doesn't tell you very much. Now let's look at the same result as part of a trend. If your score was 92 2 years ago, 85 last year, and 78 this year, we begin to see something very different. We're no longer looking at a single result. We're looking at a trend. In this example, the trend suggests that resident satisfaction may be declining. The same principle applies whether you're looking at board pass rates or faculty engagement or scholarly activity or nearly any other accreditation indicator. Strong programs don't react to the individual results. They look at the patterns over time, because trends help identify opportunities before they become risks. Because accreditation readiness isn't about understanding where the program is today, it is about recognizing where the program is headed. And the earlier we identify concerning trends, the more opportunities that we're going to have to be able to intervene, make improvements, and then prevent larger issues from developing. A single result may raise a question. A trend helps identify a risk. So if trends tell us the story of the program, the next question becomes, how do those trends now become accreditation risks? One of the biggest misconceptions about accreditation is that citations happen suddenly. And in reality, they rarely do. Most accreditation concerns begin as small issues. It might be a comment on a resident survey, a concern raised during your PEC meeting, or a decline in your faculty engagement. On their own, these issues may not seem significant, but when the same concern appears again and then again across multiple data sources, it stops becoming an isolated issue. It's becoming a trend. If that trend isn't addressed, it can begin to affect program performance and ultimately become an accreditation risk. If the underlying issue continues without meaningful intervention, then it eventually may result into a citation. Strong and high functioning programs pay attention to the early warning signs and respond before small concerns become larger problems. So once you've recognized the risk, the next question, what do we do about it? Let's talk about what happens after a concern has been identified. Recognizing a concern is an important step, but identifying a problem doesn't improve a program. Action does. Once a concern has been identified, the next step is understanding why is it happening. That means looking beyond the symptom to identify where the underlying cause is. From there, the programs develop an action plan with clear goals, responsibilities, and timelines. But writing the action plan isn't the finish line. The real work begins during the implementation. Changes need to be put into place. Progress needs to be monitored. And then the program needs to evaluate whether those changes are actually improving the educational experience. If they are, the improvement becomes part of the program's routine operations. Yay. If they're not, then the process begins again. And that's why continuous improvement is a cycle and not a one-time event. Because collecting the data is only valuable if it leads to a meaningful action. One of my favorite accreditation truths is this: the best accreditation work is boring. And I mean that as a compliment. When accreditation feels chaotic, it's usually a sign that something in the process isn't working. Strong programs don't rely on last minute preparation, constant firefighting, or heroic efforts before a site visit. Instead, they rely on consistent systems. Evaluations are reviewed on a routine basis. Committee meetings are happen regularly. Action plans are not only being developed, but they're also being monitored. Documentation stays organized. Concerns are addressed while they're still small. None of that is particularly exciting. And that's exactly the point. Because routine because routine creates stability and stability creates accreditation readiness. So, throughout this episode, we've talked about the systems, monitoring the trends, and then the continuous improvement. But none of those things happen because of one person. They happen because people work together. Accreditation readiness isn't the responsibility of the coordinator or a program director or the PEC. It's a shared responsibility. Programs directors, they provide the leadership and the accountability. Faculty teach and evaluate and mentor the residents and fellows. Residents and fellows provide feedback and help identify opportunities for improvement. Committees review data and guide continuous improvement. Institutional leaders provide resources, oversight, and support. And coordinators, we bring all those pieces together. The strongest programs aren't successful because one person carries the entire weight of the accreditation. They're successful because everyone understands their role and contributes to the same goal. When responsibility is shared, accreditation readiness becomes part of the program's culture and not the responsibility of a single individual. So throughout this episode, we talked about accreditation readiness for a reason. Preparation and readiness are not the same thing. Preparation happens before the deadline. It focuses on gathering the documents that are required, reviewing your policies, and getting ready for an external review. Readiness is different. It's built throughout the year through consistent monitoring, continuous improvement, and strong systems, and also shared accountability. When a program is truly ready, preparation becomes much easier because the work has already been done. Don't build your program around the next site visit. Build a program that's ready every day. Before we wrap up, I'd like to leave you with three key takeaways from today's episode. First, remember that accreditation readiness is an ongoing process, not something that you accomplish right before a site visit. The strongest programs build it into the way that they operate all year round. Second, don't focus on one individual data point. Look at your trends. Trends help you recognize opportunities for improvement before they become accreditation risks. And finally, remember that accreditation isn't just about meeting requirements. It's about creating the best possible learning environment for your residents and fellows. If you keep those three principles in mind, you're going to spend less time reacting to problems and more time building a stronger, healthier program. And that's what successful accreditation really is about. Thank you for joining me on today's episode. I hope today's conversation helped you see accreditation a little bit differently and hopefully not as scary. It's not about scrambling before a site visit. It's about building a program that's always ready. If you found this episode helpful, please like our video, subscribe to GME Compass, and share it with anyone else working in GME. And before you go, I'd love to hear from you. What part of accreditation readiness do you find most challenging? Leave your thoughts in the comment below. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.